Hello, this is Wmpyr. For today's video, I want to talk about multiple things. And yeah, please just treat this kind of like a podcast type of video. First things first, I want to talk about my YouTube channel. So if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been a long-time viewer, and thank you for that. There's really three main things that I would like for you guys to get out of my channel because I cover so much. I mean, I try to keep it in martial arts topic wise, but still within martial arts, that's a very broad subject. And the three things that I want to focus on, number one is realistic self-defense. Okay. I used to teach traditional and the modern being my own. But now I'm just focused 100% on my own. Reason being is because, yes, while there are many exercises and things that you could practice lifelong, and for me that was the beauty of martial arts. A lot of that stuff can get confusing to people, and I see all over YouTube a lot of misinformation. So I'm taking essentially Captain Fairbairn's approach, and I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So for the longest time, this was me concentrating on me. It was all about myself. Therefore, I am a lifelong martial artist, so that stuff was included. And of course, the longer you train, the better you can get. And if you didn't have the discipline to keep up with me, I could care less. That was your problem, not mine. My approach to that, once again, has changed. And now I see it as if the average person cannot learn or pick this up, then we have a problem. And that was, I believe, even though he taught people like special forces, which is clearly not the normal population, but he also taught his stuff for the average soldier and also even civilians in case there was an invasion into the British homeland. So he wanted anyone to be able to pick up his methods and to successfully use them, for self-defense. And yeah, I am definitely down with his approach. The simplicity. Not only does it make sense to me in that way, but it also makes sense to me because I know from training in the modern tactical stuff is that deployment is so important. So you could have the best knife in the world or the best pepper spray in the world. If it's not accessible, then you'll never get to it. In a real life situation, you get assaulted, you get mugged, whatever, and you can't get to it, it's pointless. So deployment is extremely important, right? That's super simple logic. And for martial arts wise, this refers to deployment in the brain, inside your brain. In order for you to quickly access your style and to be able to use your style, it needs to be clear and simple, because if it's convoluted or if it's not specific enough, you're going to go, is this the right time for me to use this? What part of it do I use? It's not organized, so you learn way too many things. What part of that it was merely for exercise? What is the stuff that I could use right now? What is the stuff that I'm going to be using 5 years later? It's all jumbled in there. Therefore, your deployment is going to suck. And that is what I've been working on for quite some time in my later years in my martial arts journey, is based off of Captain Fairbairn. And please don't confuse that with people saying that, fine motor skill versus gross motor skill, and then they only want to make their art gross motor skill, and therefore, I just feel like, yeah, there is a little bit of truth in there, in my opinion. But if you do that, then you're going to severely limit yourself. And it's simply not true. People can do amazing things in real life. So if you limit yourself to only the most basic, the most simple, then your performance is going to be super, super basic and super, super simple. And it may simply not be enough to overcome the situation. So why limit yourself? I don't believe in limiting myself. So I am using Captain Fairbairn's approach not to limit myself, but to be able to access it, to better organize the art, okay? To better organize the self-defense program. That is how I'm using Captain Fairbairn's method. So yeah, number one is realistic self-defense. If you can't use it, or if you're not going to use it in real life, then why are we practicing this? Why am I teaching it? So it comes down to that question. And unless you could answer that very well, we're wasting each other's time. So I don't teach that stuff. And the other thing is, I'm seeing a lot of people teach in the name of self-defense stuff that I don't see it as self-defense. It's very offensive and aggressive, and that sounds super cool, that it's ultra violent, and this is designed to take out the bad guy because they're not going to have mercy on you, so you're not going to have mercy on them. It all sounds super cool. It's just marketing gimmick. At the end of the day, you won't be able to access that because you're going to be going, is this the right time to use it? Is it really okay for me to use it? Can I use it? Those three questions right there. The answer is no, no, and no. So it's not coming out. The bad guy is the bad guy. They put you in a bad situation and they're attacking you maybe in the worst way possible. And you're supposed to do something terribly nasty to them at that point where you're at such a disadvantage. You're just not in an offensive position at that point. So it doesn't make sense. It makes sense if you're the one initiating, you're the one in control, and then you're going to do something nasty to them because you're the one in power here. You are in position to do something really nasty to the other person. Then it makes sense, but that's not how real life works. You woke up and you had no idea that you were going to be in this bad situation, so therefore now you are in this bad situation. If you could avoid it, you should have, you would have. Why didn't you? Why'd you walk into this? So you're caught off guard. That's not a strong position. It doesn't make sense for you to be able to mutilate the other person, So we have to get away from that 8th grade fantasy of I'm going to defeat this bad guy and save the girl, and I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be devastating. We got to get away from this 8th grade fantasy. So that's number one, is I try to teach realistic self-defense in this modern day era of what I call misinformation, because there's so much misinformation out there. Okay. I wanted to test my self-defense skills. I lived in bad neighborhoods, And if I had done what these videos teach you, and believe me, I walked around with a knife, I practiced with the knife, I lived and ate the knife. The people that know me at that time, they know I was heavily into knives, where I was carrying, multiple knives on me constantly. It wasn't EDC. I called it ERC, every room carry, not everyday carry. Every room I'm equipped with a knife. So that's what I was doing. I was super super into it. I even remember this one time in MMA training. I was there to train at an MMA gym, right? Because I was part of the team. And one of the guys said to me, he said, "Are you carrying a knife?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "How'd you know?" And he goes, "'Cause it's printing on you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, then I messed up because it shouldn't have been visible. Like you shouldn't be able to tell. Like I didn't know it was printing." So yeah, I was carrying even in MMA practice. So that's how crazy I was with that. And part of that was like I was trying to test, can people see that I have this? I want people to not know that I had it, and I was testing it in every way possible. So anyway, if I had used the knife when I was living in the Section 8 government housing level apartments, I was living in these not so nice neighborhoods. Poor girl the worst one was where a poor girl got murdered. She, I believe, got choked to death. It could have been a stalker issue. I don't know the details, but my friend at the time was a police officer, and I remember seeing it was a store, and the store was shut down, and there was police footprints all over, and so I asked my friend, like, what exactly happened right there, because I live in this neighborhood, and he said, "Oh, is this poor young girl got choked to death. And so that was the worst thing that happened in the neighborhood. But there was plenty of other bad things, but nothing was that worse. I think she was like just out of high school or something like that. She's just trying to, work and make a living, and yeah. Anyway, so living in those places, and I got approached plenty of times, aggressively, plenty of times. And if I had responded with a knife to the eye or something, I could have easily have been in prison. I could have been arrested and all that. Never, not once. Okay, not once did that happen. I realized that prevention is the best thing, but, I'm, to a certain extent, the best prevention is to not live there. But like I said, I was testing myself. So I lived there, and, I didn't just live there and then stay in my apartment and keep the door shut and just stay there and never go out. No, I went out as much as I could. And then at night, I went running. I did midnight patrols. So I was doing like guardian angel kind of stuff. In my eyes, I was doing the Batman vigilante type of stuff. So I went over by the bars, even though I don't drink, and I would see drunk people, and of course there were arguments, there were fights in some cases, and I would see that from the shadows in the blackness of night, and I'm wearing all black, and if a police officer pulled me over, I'm not going to look like a vigilante, but I am dressed completely in black so that I could, blend in into the shadows, so to speak. So I was armed and everything. So of course I avoided the cops, and I would. My goal, if someone, let's say, was they just came out of the bar and they're having a mega fight, which I saw outside of the bar, and if someone is beaten to the point where they're about to die or something, then I thought that it was my duty to go help them. So unless something like that, if they're just fighting, then that's not, this is not playing. So I'm only going to come in when it's life threatening. I'll call the police. I have my cell phone, so I can call the police, and all that kind of stuff, is to assist and serve kind of thing, and that comes from my security officer experience, that because I knew, like, I kind of had an idea of how much to be involved, how much not to be involved, which was a great help. Because this was really, when you're a security officer, you're on your own. You really are. The company had told me, like, if you get into a physical altercation, they're like, we're not going to back you up. They pretty much said that, in the court of law, you're alone. And the company I was working for, which was separate, they could care less about me. I was just a rent-a-cop, so they treated me like one, and, all that. But yeah, I realized that my duty was really observation, writing down what I saw, being a witness. That it was more along those lines, and calling the police. So yeah, I mean, even police call for backup, So there is no shame in that. You're there to help people, and I had to get it out of my mind that I'm Superman, and then I'm going to go in there and save the day. So that's not what happened. And I got to witness this firsthand, or I got to experience this myself. Another one that was a big lesson for me was that I remember seeing this homeless lady, old lady, homeless, and I felt, something, really felt something. And so I went into the convenience store and bought stuff that I thought would be good, like just basic water for survival. You could use it for not just drinking, but for washing hands or whatever, hydrate certain skin areas, whatever. So a bottle of water, and then bought stuff for protein, but, carbs, and, just thought that stuff that I thought was useful for her. And I was going to give it to her. And normally I like to, like, for example, when I go to a restaurant and I tip, I like to let them know that I tipped. Part of that is for security. Security is because if I don't and I just leave money on the table, there unfortunately are some bad people that will steal that. So I let them know, like, hey, I left your tip right there. Okay, so don't just leave it there, because someone could take it. And if you do, then it's on you now. It's not on me. So I left a tip. There you go. So getting part of that is for not safety, but to not encourage crime. Hopefully that is a small percentage, and part of that is just to have a good feeling between the wait staff, and myself, because there could be miscommunication. They could be like, did this person leave a tip? Or they may not remember, and I just don't want a bad vibes like that. So I want to make sure, hey, I left you a tip. It's right there. Okay, thank you. Bye. So it's just communication, not a big deal. So anyway, in this case with the homeless lady, I thought about doing the same thing. Like, hey, ma'am, here you go. But then I thought to myself that no good deed goes unpunished. So this is a weird lesson for me, because I thought, if you're nice and you're nice to people, then people will be nice back to you, is what you think, right? And you want to attract positivity in your life, so be nice. It makes sense. It's not that simple. If you project that you're nice, then there are people out there that know that you're nice, and they gravitate towards nice people. So I've had some people that are not nice people be, I don't want to say attracted towards me, because it wasn't just females. It was also males that just wanted to hang out with me, because to them, they're like, you are beta, I'm alpha. And it's like, no, I'm nice. That has nothing to do with alpha and beta. And you're thinking a nice person is a doormat. And to me, that is not the case. And I'm definitely way too strong for that. My personality, is just way too strong for that. So I get confused for that because I'm nice. People think that I'm a doormat, and it's like, I'm not a doormat. um, but it's very easy for people to misunderstand true niceness, because the way that I see it is, if you're a mom and your kid is being attacked and you're like, I never fought, I don't know what to do, and you don't do anything, that's a doormat. And to me, that's not really nice, because you should be protecting your kid no matter what. And if you can't do that, then it's kind of like, then why'd you have a kid? So there are other questions to be asked there, but so that idea of no good deed goes unpunished was a very weird lesson for me. And I don't remember when I learned it, or it was probably in college time is when I first heard of it and learned about it. And I was like, that's weird, because I thought if I'm nice, I'm going to attract niceness around me. So, my life will be better. And it's like, yes, but you have to still be careful. So in this case, with this homeless lady, I'll give her the stuff, but at the same time, I made it to where she didn't know. She was asleep. I didn't wake her up, and I put it right next to her, and then I took off. And I was watching from a distance. She woke up like she felt something. It's probably my presence, but I was already long gone. And then she saw the bag, and then she started looking in. And then, so at that point, I was like, okay, good. And then I left, because I don't know, unfortunately, her being homeless, she could be mentally not right. And even though that's what I want to give her, or she could have been traumatized. And me approaching her and trying to give her something, she might think that it's a trap, that it's some kind of trick, or she could just flip out on me, just because, she has some mental problems or something. So therefore, that was the right choice, unfortunately. And I know some people, all they want is just to be talked to like a human being. And I would have loved to have done that for her, but I didn't know. I just didn't know. And maybe at that time wasn't the right time to do that. And part of that could have just been, if she had lashed out to me, I couldn't handle that at that moment. I would have been too hurt. So part of that is also me. It's not just her. So maybe at a different time, I could have just approached her and said, hey, are you okay, or something, and try to make conversation and just test the waters that way. But yeah, I'll never forget that experience, and I could still see it almost like a movie very clearly. And it does remind me of that Phil Collins song. What is it called? Just Another Day in Paradise. Yeah, that's a beautiful song. But all right. So realistic self-defense. Okay, it's not about kicking the bad guy's ass. It's about surviving the streets, surviving the attack. Okay. Sometimes you need to give the bad guy a way out, believe it or not. Because if you corner the bad guy because you're taught offense only, and so you're doing as you trained, and you're attacking them, and you end up cornering them. Remember, a caged animal, and they got everything to lose, or should I say, they cannot afford to go back to jail again or something like that. They're going to fight with everything they got now. And you took it there. In other words, you escalated the situation. Now they got to put their life on the line. And you just want to survive tonight, and it's not the same. The motivation's not the same. So don't corner them in. And this, I believe, is also the same as, like, you could learn this and apply this in your everyday life. It could just be as simple as asking a friend if they want to go see a movie with you or hang out with you. Give the person a way out. Don't corner them. And some people will corner people on purpose to peer pressure and be like, come on, man, come on, and, do that. And it's like, you get your way, and you're used to getting your way, and all that does is you become an intolerable jackass, and the only way that you can get things the way that you want is because you've been forcing it all your life. And then you'll definitely be one of those people that you don't have real friends, or no one likes you. But you are doing that to yourself by being that way. And when you're young and you're constantly doing that, you're going, yeah, I picked this movie and it was amazing. And these people watched it because I made them, and you're playing dictator, and you are going to have the personality of a dictator, and no one likes that. So, so realistic self-defense is one. Number two is Bas Rutten's O2 trainer. I've had chronic asthma all my life. Really bad. And like I said, to this day, I've never met anyone who's had asthma worse than me. Mine was always the worst, the absolute worst. And yeah, I could tell you on and on just stories, but one of the highlights was, I've already told this on my YouTube channel, but I was in grade school and I had an asthma attack. So this was during break, right? During break, we were out in recess playing in the courtyard. And so, the bell rings, everyone's back in class. I'm the only one still in the courtyard, and I have an asthma attack. And I crawled up the stairs. It's like the third floor to get back to my classroom. I remember crawling all the way back and then getting finally to my classroom. And it was such an eerie experience because, everyone's in class, and I know it. And I know I'm in big trouble because I'm not there. But so I'm hoping someone would come look for me because I'm missing, but no. And I went all the way to the classroom door, and I pushed it open, and I'm on all fours. I crawled all the way up the stairs and all the way. And right as I opened it, the girl that I had a crush on saw me, and she screamed and yelled at the teacher. And then I just remember blacking out, just completely passing out from there. And yeah. But that's grade school, right? That's grade school. So later on, as an adult, as this is past college, as an adult, and boy, am I skipping a lot. There's so many stories I could tell you guys, but as an adult, asthma attacks happened all the time, constantly. And I remember I was physically strong enough at this point because I'm an adult now and I've been doing martial arts since junior high, since the 8th grade. So I've been doing martial arts, so my body's stronger. I've been through some training and stuff that The average person might be like, damn, that's some pretty hardcore stuff. So I've been through that. It took, of course, years. I mean, I had to work my way up to do that. It wasn't just a matter of put in a ton of effort and then you'll get there kind of thing. No, this took years. I mean, this took decades to get there. So I'm working out, and I'm trying to stay in shape, doing martial arts on my own, and it just was, getting an asthma attack was a normal thing for me. And I when I exercise, I'm training for martial arts. So when I do that, I am going to get an asthma attack. So it's exercise induced asthma, right? But if I don't exercise, I'm going to be weak. You got to work out to stay strong. So if you don't work out, you're going to get weaker and weaker. But if I work out, I'm going to get my asthma attack. So then the question I had to ask myself was, do you want to get an asthma attack when you're weak, or do you want to get an asthma attack when you're strong? Because the asthma attack's happening either way. So the obvious answer is I'd rather get it when I'm stronger, because I can battle it more. So that was me for decades, just dealing with it. And it just got to the point where it felt like the asthma was getting stronger, like it was adapting to me being strong, and I was losing that battle. And then so I got very, very desperate. And like I just said, I'd get an asthma attack like nothing. But you guys, if you never had asthma, you don't understand that if I get an asthma attack, this is going on for hours. So if I get it at 10 at night, and a lot of times you get it at night, especially, and in the wee hours in the morning. So then I'm losing valuable sleep time. So I'm there wheezing and going like that. Thankfully, I'm used to it. But if you're not used to it, I mean, that's a choking sensation, right? And that's going on for hours. So imagine being choked for like 5 hours, right? So there were times where I was just so tired that, from life, I was just so tired. And even though I have the asthma attack and I can't sleep, that I slept. And I was, woke myself up coughing and wheezing. And I thought literally maybe I was going to die, because if I pass out while having an asthma attack, I could just choke to death. It never happened, but it definitely felt like it was gonna. So the asthma felt like it was winning, and I was like, dude, you could train all you want, but you're only getting older. So physically, I just cannot keep up with this. And I don't know how hard I'm going to be able to train after 50, after 60. So then, what are you going to do, kind of thing. And I got real desperate. And I researched all over the internet. And so then I saw Boss Rutan's O2 trainer, and I decided to give this thing a try. And I did. I gave it a try. And the results were amazing. Right away. Amazing. Like in 3 days' time, I was like, are you serious? It was really, the best way I could describe it was a miracle. A literal, a miracle. So Boss Rutan, to me, for inventing this thing, is serious. He's a saint, is the way I would see it. The man is a saint for me, because this is, all my prayers in every religion I could think of. And finally got to this. and just dealing with this thing, and now I'm living asthma free since I've been using it. And people ask me, do you still use it? Yeah, about 5 days a week. Yeah. And it's become hard, unfortunately, because the apartment I live in here is not a bad apartment. And it's not a dangerous neighborhood, not anymore. I don't live in those anymore, but it's a decent place. Unfortunately, I go work out at night, and it should be totally safe, and it pretty much is. That I could just go work out at night, any time of the night. There's so many people smoking weed that the air is polluted, and I cannot go out there. Because that, even though I'm doing all this with Boss Rutan's O2 trainer, and I'm working out 5 days a week, for cardio to strengthen my lungs, strengthen my heart and all that. One whiff of that and I'm gonna feel sick. So it's pretty irritating, that people are smoking all this stuff. I mean, I am not a fan of alcohol either, but with alcohol, unless people actually drive and kill somebody or put someone else's life in danger, or they use alcohol to, get into a fight and cause violence or something. But alcohol is you're drinking, and yes, the breath can stink, and yes, they can stink, but it really is not as bad. The pollution is not as bad as the smoking, for the most part. The smoking, whether it's cigarettes, cigars, or weed, those three have just been the absolute worst for me. And I wish I lived in another multiverse, another dimension where that just simply didn't exist. But unfortunately, that's not. It's like the worst thing for me, and it's even vaping that'll cause me to start wheezing. So even vaping is I can't handle that. So that has just been the bane of my existence. The serious bane. I hate that stuff. Hate it. And I really don't understand when people go to the beach and you have this amazing, beautiful oceanside breeze and it's clean air, and then they're smoking out there, or out in the wilderness. You're in the mountains and this forest and it's clean air, and then they're smoking. And I'm just like, what are you doing? But that's on them, and just please stay away from me. So yeah, I would like to pass that on and share that information with as many people as possible. Is the Boss Rutan O2 trainer. Yeah, I highly recommend it, or highest possible recommendations. And yeah, do it. That's all. If you don't even have to have asthma, you could have allergy problems, you could have or you could have no problems and you just want to become a stronger version of you. Can't recommend it enough. Yeah. So the third thing, so realistic self-defense, the O2 trainer, and then number 3 is something I've been doing a little bit here and there, but now I want to focus on it more than ever. I really want to focus on it with a fury, which is old school body movement. And this really comes from the thought that people of back then walked differently compared to the people of today. The people of back then used more skeletal movements, and the people of today use more muscular movements. So that's the difference. Today, MMA is so popular. The sport, UFC, cage fighting is so popular. And that is pretty much said to be like, a lot of people consider it to be the best style on the planet. And I want to tell you guys that uh, that is based off of sport. Okay, it is based off of a sport. So sport is muscular in movement, and the price that an athlete pays to be a competitor, because it is short term. It is short term. We have, the average person has no idea what it takes for an athlete like that to do what they do, and like such a small window of their life, but it has to be at the right time for them to be able to do all that. And the cost is tremendous. It is such a big cost because it's so competitive. And that's the whole point, is that you're making it extremely competitive to where not everyone can do it. The cost on your physical, and I'm just not down with that. I don't believe in, for right now, for me to win now, and for right now, I'm going to do this, and therefore later I'm going to be like crippled, or I'm going to be really, really messed up. That is something that, if it happens, it happens. But like in a self-defense situation, if it needs to go there, it'll go there. It's not something that I purposely choose. No, I should not have to choose that. Once again, that's something that, if it happens, it should have been beyond my control, where I had to sacrifice myself to save family or something, that it wasn't even really a choice. I should be doing the best that I can to get back home with them. All of us get back home together safely, because that's what they want too, But someone who deliberately does sport, I mean, the sport is so competitive. There are so many people doing, physical enhancement drugs, PEDs, steroids, things of that nature, because it's that competitive. They kind of almost have to, in order to compete in that level. And in some ways, that's a norm. And if that's what they're doing, you could imagine that the techniques is also going to be from that same mentality. Now, I'm going to do everything I can for the now, and who cares about when I'm older, for the glory, for the fame and fortune. I'm going to do this. And technique wise, you're doing stuff that is muscular based. So you're going to lift weights, and not that lifting weights is bad, but you're going to take your body to the point where it's unnatural, unhealthy, for the purpose of having a devastating kick or a devastating takedown, or knockout power or whatever. Even if you don't do steroids, it's the same lines of thinking that you do that, and you're sacrificing a tremendous amount of your physical health. When you're older, once you hit 40, 50 and older, think of, in order to sustain that kind of energy, training, the cardio work, the muscle work, think of all the food that you're eating. And then now, when your body cannot do that anymore, your joints and your tendons can't handle that anymore, then at that, and even your nerves, that's what we're finding out, is there's nerve damage from all that, from constantly hitting the punching bag, and all that's coming back to you. There's nerve damage, and there's all kinds of micro damage going on there, and you're doing all of that for what price? For what price? I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. And when you are older, like I said, the amount of calories you're taking in, that's a tremendous amount of strain on your internal organs, your digestive system. So I wouldn't doubt it if those people are going to end up with, there's two ways that a human being can die, right? External, from an external damage, and also internal. And if you're putting that kind of stress on your internal organs, and your internal organs are being overworked that way for years, and even though it is a short time, you are doing excessive amounts. Yeah, I could bulk up to like 180, but the price that's going to take on my insides is no way. And then what do? You bulk up to 180, and then you shred weight to get you down easily like under 170. You're like 165, 160, competing, at a much lower weight class so that you could do better. This is a tremendous amount of strain on your body. And yeah, the ones willing to do it are the ones that you're watching. And the ones that are not willing to do it, I think is the right way to go. So I am going for the old school way. It's no shortcuts like that. And when I'm 60, I still want to be able to do martial arts. I still want to be able to fight. If I have to, I still want to be able to do self-defense, of course. So I still want to be able to do fight training at that age. So that's what I'm aiming for. And to be able to do that, I cannot stress out my body like that, or it's gonna break down. And especially because I was never normal to begin with. I just told you guys about my asthma. I've always been below average, and dealing with below average, making myself to where I could compete with average and above average people. Of course, I can't compete with the super athletes, but I did get to the point where I was, going toe to toe with above average athletes, which is, I think, testimonial in itself. But yeah, so I believe 100% in the old school way. So I'd like to reveal more and more about that, and what it is I'm actually doing, and compared to a more modern version of the technique, things like that. All right, and yeah, the next thing, man. Okay, so I'm 48 minutes. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I know this is not for everybody. A lot of people won't click on this video, and that's fine. If it's one person that clicks on this and enjoys it, then I've done my purpose. And more so than enjoy. I mean, enjoying is great, but if you could actually get something beneficial out of it, that's really my interest there. The next is I want to talk about my student over in Japan. This guy, this year, gave him a black belt. And what is he doing now? What he's doing now is he has a close friend who is a martial arts instructor over there. And this guy that dude is a beast. And he did a lot of like kung fu, multiple kung fu styles. And he also studied traditional Japanese martial arts styles, multiple. And he is an instructor of, I don't know how many of those systems, but yeah, the guy's a total beast. And his specialty is a chain weapon called the Kusari Fundo, which is made famous by the ninjas. The ninja, it's a ninja weapon. It's a chain weapon, and he customized it. So he evolved it, and he's made it way longer. And yeah, the guy's like, he's just, I believe he's the only guy in the world doing it. Like no one is at his level. I mean, there are other people messing around with, sorry, from the, no one's at his level. I've seen that I could tell. You know, I've seen all over YouTube. I mean, he's using chains that when you know, it's a chain weapon, so it has chain link like this, right? And most of the time, a normal chain is going to be, it's right where it connects, where it's wielded, right? There's a bump right there, so then it can get tangled. He's using a special chain that's smooth, so it won't tangle up, like it won't get caught like that. So I mean, he's doing stuff like that, you know. Yeah, is a chain, and the weight part is all custom. Yeah, it's incredible stuff that he's doing, and he has a little bit of Filipino martial arts background, and he has been my friend for quite some time now, and we've, you know, communicated back and forth many times. We've talked on the phone many times. I've actually been lucky enough to actually meet him in person, and yeah, the guy's a beast. Super kind, sweet individual. Um, anyway, so my student is also under that guy's, I would say, under that guy's care. They're training partners, but that guy is looking after him, and my student is also looking after him. So there's a and the three of us, of course, you know, we get along very well. So I've said many times to my student, like, you know, please, you learn my system, and you know, please mix it with his system. I said integrate, you know, please. So please train with him, and keep this good relationship between all three of us, kind of thing. And my student has been doing exactly that, and he has been cross training in that chain style. And they're actually fencing buddies. They go fencing together, because I told my student that fencing, you know, obviously is important influence in Filipino martial arts. So yeah, both of them are been doing fencing for a year now, and hopefully they'll continue on. But uh, so yeah, so my student now is, you know, I told him, don't be a clone of me. If you're my clone, you will never surpass me, and that's not what I want, and that's not what my teacher's teacher, Professor Remy Presas, he said, you got to make it your own. So I made it my own, and I created B1 Escrima, which is different from his modern Arnis. And I believe that is his teaching. He said, my Arnis won't be the same as yours. And so it's not. It is in many ways, but it's also not. And I passed that teaching down to my student. And so now he is doing Filipino martial arts mixed with the chain weapon. So he's now using that chain weapon and doing Heaven Six, just crazy things. Now he's like getting into rope dart stuff. So these are the flexible weapons, which, you know, I told him that in Filipino martial arts we do some flexible weapons training. Why? Because two purposes. Number one is that it will improve your technique, your body mechanics. The flexible weapons it will teach you better body mechanics. So that's number one, to improve your technique. Number two is, because, and both of these are important, is that when using improvised weapons, one of the four types, you never know. The improvised weapon that you get might be a flexible weapon, like maybe it's a t-shirt, you know, maybe it's a belt, maybe it's a jacket, maybe it's a chain if you're lucky, you know. So it's going to be there's a possibility that it could be a flexible weapon. So that's why we want to be at least a little bit familiar with that. So he had already understood that, he had been training that, and so now on top of that, and my extent is I didn't go super deep into it. I mean, I've seen Filipino martial arts instructors, like some of the real famous um, the masters and stuff, working with like whips and stuff. I never went to that level. What's a lot more common is the nunchuck. So what I've done on my YouTube channel, and this was I was inspired when I saw Professor Danny Nosanto in the Game of Death. More in particular, one of the outtakes of the Game of Death, I just saw him handling the stick, and it was so smooth. It just looked like the stick was flowing around him, like the stick had a mind of its own. And I was like, oh, he's moving the stick like a nunchuck. Okay, why don't I practice that? That'll make me more smooth with the stick. So that's one of the things that I showed on my YouTube channel many years ago, which was stick chaku. You know, get a simple Escrima stick and do nunchuck type movements with it. And yeah, that's really to my extent. I didn't go a lot more further into improvised weapons. Just a little bit dabbled in that. That was the extent. Same with knife throwing. Projectile weapons is the fourth kind that you might find of improvised weapon, like a rock. You find a rock and then you can throw the rock. So you want to have a little bit of ability to be able to throw things. So knife throwing is one of the skills, but I never really got past beyond that. I didn't become like a knife throwing expert or anything. It's there to a certain degree if I need it, but I'm not like amazing at it or anything. It's not my specialty. Anyway, my student was really delving into this flexible weapon stuff, and like I said, combining it with Heaven 6 and Heaven 4 and other Filipino martial arts moves, which was, he got the idea from that gentleman that I spoke of, the instructor. I'll just call him the chain weapon instructor, the Kusari Fundo instructor, because that's what that guy is. That guy's been doing Kusari Fundo for over a decade. He's an expert at it, So my student has been following that guy's teaching in a sense, and then combining the what I taught him with the FMA, Filipino martial arts. So yeah, he's doing that. He kind of is the perfect prodigy for both instructors in that sense, that he's creating something new in this sense, even though he's not the originator of this idea. He's definitely taking it to a level that I don't think either one of us has gone to. Especially not with the Kusari Fundo, because that instructor's amazing at it, but like in a sense of the rope dart, that's crazy that he's messing around with that now. Yeah, the Kusari Fundo guy, nor myself, none of us have done rope dart Filipino martial art. Rope dart is originally a kung fu weapon, and from my understanding, it is the hardest difficulty level of all the weapons, and they got tons of weapons. They got hook swords, they got swords that I can't even name. They got weapons that just crazy looking, amazing looking weapons in the Chinese martial arts. But yeah, the rope dart's supposed to be the hardest of the hard, and that's what he's doing, mixing that with Filipino martial arts. So I'm super proud of him, trying to encourage him as much as I can. And yeah, I could only wish him the best. And look, to you guys, I would say the same thing. Don't become my clone. In the beginning, yes, you have to imitate. And you have to imitate as good as perfectly as possible, because if you don't, your notes suck. If you're inaccurate with the original material source, if you're learning from me, then I am the original. So you have to make it as close as possible to me. But then after a certain extent, don't be my clone, and I don't know what it is, your background, or what direction you want to go into. Maybe it's firearms. Then, combine firearms with FMA, or maybe it's the pepper spray, or maybe it's the tactical baton, or whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you are very, very good at amateur wrestling. So then combine it and, with my material, and then you start to really, this is you. I dabbled in amateur wrestling, but if that's your forte, then hey, you're on another level than I am with that. So you're going to be able to do stuff that I cannot do. You can see things that I cannot see because I don't have your experience. And that's what's important, is that you do what you can do, make it your own, which is what was taught to me. And so I passed that on to you. And so, I'm very proud of my student for that. The next thing is I want to, oh, wow. We're past an hour. So I think this is a good place to end it. Yeah. So if you've been watching this long, thank you so much. And that's it for now. Thank you for viewing. And take care, folks.